Thank you,
Yep.
thank you.
Order, please rise and join the committee in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I'd ask that you please note that this meeting is being electronically recorded. If there's no objection by the committee, we're going to follow a slightly modified order to the agenda tonight. As I just said to Mr. Larson, we may at any moment jump into a finance subcommittee report because Mr. Rose's grandson is waiting for him in Washington, D.C. patiently, and we'd like to get him there on time. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
anytime, Mr. Rose. We'll start with the consent agenda. I'll just note also that I appreciate the committee meeting. Thursday nights are not our usual night. As the school year is coming to a close, we have a number of items that we're trying to move off of the docket as efficiently as possible. So tonight we're going to try to get through a lot of that business in the hope of leaving here on Monday prior to Tuesday. So I think that would be a good goal. So first, a motion to accept a donation in the amount of $225.28 from McDonald's to Answer for Cancer at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. A motion to accept an anonymous donation in the amount of $150 to the class of 2014 for prom tickets at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $175 from Mansfield High School for the college fair at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $175 from Norton High School for the college fair at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $168 from My Locker to athletics at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $100 from Briggs Pizza Night to the Student Council at Attleboro High School.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to accept a donation of 5 yards of mulch for Studley Elementary School from John Horton at G. Lopes Construction Company, located at 490 Winthrop Street in Taunton, Massachusetts.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to declare the following textbooks with the publishing dates of 1980 as surplus. 25 Scott Forsman Discover Science books. 25 Houghton Mifflin This Is My Country books. 25 Houghton Mifflin From Sea to Shining Sea. 25 Man and Communities, Regions of the U.S. 25 Follett World Regions, and 25 Holt Our Regions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That wraps up our consent agenda for the night. Our next one is not a consent agenda, but as I said in a memo to the school committee, under school committee policy, the governing body has authority for naming various school facilities. That's indoors and outdoors. And over time, a few things have just sort of gotten named, and we just want to make sure that we're complying with all policies. So, unfortunately, while I know that the culinary room, formerly known as the Apprentice Cafe, has been dubbed the Blue Pride Bistro, and the playground at Studley Elementary School has been dubbed the Janella Porter Playground, there's some confusion as to whether or not the weight room has an officially adopted name. And frankly, I meant to walk down there prior to the meeting to check out the sign, and I didn't have time to do it. So what I'm going to ask is for a motion to name the culinary restaurant at Attleboro High School the Blue Pride Bistro.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? It's a good place to
Sounds like a great place to watch.
Thank you very much. It's a perfect opportunity for some advertising for the Blue Pride Bistro. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. A motion to declare the playground at Studley Elementary School the Janella Porter Playground.
So moved.
Second.
And I would just say that Ms. Porter attended the scholarship night. She was a long public servant in Attleboro and made some tremendous contributions to the Studley community and the district as a whole.
Great principal.
Very much so. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And I will change up after the meeting, hit the weight room, and I'll check out that sign and make a determination as to what the name of it actually is. Moving on. We have a update in our budget process. Our budget process now has been going on for some time. It's been well documented that this is a difficult budget season. We've said from the beginning that there were challenges that have been mitigated by the contributions and work by our partners in the municipal government. We've said from the beginning that those actions would mitigate but not solve our issues. And the superintendent, Mr. Rose, will now offer an update to where we are in the budget cycle and what some of the implications of that are. Mr. Sheehan?
Well, we've been doing this for quite some time. We've had probably 5 or 6 different meetings. We've been in front of the city council, we've been in front of the mayor, et cetera. And it has been a tremendous task. We know what, in fact, the administration proposed. We know what we could live with. And it's going to be a very, very difficult year. However, we've been working over the last week or so on a number of different areas with regard to bringing the budget into what we think is going to be the number that the city council approves. So there are no surprises with it. In fact, you have budgets that we've been dealing with since March 14th, May 14th, in those particular budgets. We have followed the lead, the administration has followed the lead of the school committee of what it was expected. And I think that at this particular time, with the unfortunate occurrence of layoffs going out tomorrow and non-renewal of staff, we will in fact produce a balanced budget with the numbers that have been provided to us. This is not without sacrifice. This is not without programs being affected. But I can honestly say, what would the Attleboro Public Schools system be like next year without the action taken by the city council and the mayor and the school committee and the school system as a whole, who supported the $1 million in additional tax revenue? Without that, this school system would have been devastated. Obviously, the task at hand now becomes, or has become, more difficult because we're engaged in 7 different labor unions in different negotiations. And in good years, that's okay. In bad years, it's not okay. And so when you're looking for concessions, it's very, very difficult. But we're providing the balance. As taking the lead from this school committee and my administration, we are going to act responsibly to the students of the Attleboro Public Schools. We are going to make sure that the impact of layoffs have the least effect on our students, and despite having to move forward with regard to negotiations and have that unknown to us. But we have deadlines that are state implemented as far as mandates, and that date is June 15th for notification of our professional staff. We have the same date for some of the other staff members as well. And we're prepared to do that tomorrow. And it's going to be a very difficult day for principals and teachers and other professionals and non-professional certified members of our staff and school population and personnel tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Other questions from the committee or comments? Mr. Withers?
Well, what are we looking at as far as closing the gap, and as far as the impact on the professionals in our department, as far as layoffs or other contingencies, especially given that we don't know where we're going to be since negotiations are ongoing?
It's a very good question, Mr. Withers. So what we did was take what we thought was going to have to be, and that was what was legally binding for the school committee and the administration in Attleboro, meaning what are the contractual limitations that we currently have? What are those things that we own in the contracts? We don't own the idea of giving raises to people or whatever. We own what the contract language is with regard to steps and lanes and other, pieces of other people's contracts. So consequently, that's where the number is. We took that number, what are we obligated legally to come up with a number, and then we looked at what would be the reduction of staff in order to equate to what we currently have, budgetary-wise, from the mayor's budget, and what you people have shared with us, and then back that out with the number of people that in fact would be receiving layoff notices tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that frames it well. I think that we've known for a while that we're working with obligations that we're not where we want to be with regard to fulfilling. And we've also known that it's been a priority of this school committee and this school administration to minimize the impact on students. And that's as as everyone knows who's been in these meetings, that's been our objective. I think that the administration has done a commendable job in terms of putting together a plan that does fulfill that objective. But it's the reality is we're not in a place where we can say that there is no impact on the district. There will be. I think that in time, whenever we go through these time periods of difficult budget season or other types of challenges, the district has over and over again come through it stronger. But this one is particularly difficult because we had the hope that we might be able to avoid this, and that's not the case. So, Mr. Sheen, I think I'll defer to you in terms of how specific you want to be in terms of the totality, but I would say that as we looked at these numbers, it could have been much, much worse. And the number that's been said publicly and it's been said publicly here, and it's been said publicly at the municipal council when the legislation was being debated with regard to the revenue package, was that that we were in the dozens, potentially upwards of 50 educators. We are nowhere near that number. That's because of the action taken by the municipal council and because of the priority that this administration has adhered to with regard to minimizing that impact. And I know that's been a lot of work on the part of the superintendent, a lot of work on the part of Mr. Rose, a lot of work on the part of the assistant superintendent and the rest of the central administration and building staffs to find ways to avoid this fiscal climate from having a detrimental impact on students. And what that means is keeping people in the buildings, keeping teachers in the classroom, and keeping staff in our district. And we have largely been able to do that. We have not been able to do that entirely, and that's why this is difficult.
Is it the desire of the committee to know exactly how many people would be affected?
I think the overall impact is appropriate.
There'll be 18.5 positions that will be affected. Of those 18.5, 12.7 teachers and 5.8 paras positions will be affected. This results in 16 layoffs, 9 teachers and 7 paras. There will also be 2 reductions of 2 additional teachers. Whenever you do this, I think the ripple effect may be as devastating as the people getting layoffs for a lot of cases. There'll be 38 people affected by these cuts. 25 teachers and 13 paras, our paraprofessionals, will be affected because of the bumping process. So although 9 teachers will have layoffs and 7 paras, 38 people will be affected totally in going from another grade to another discipline to another school with different kids, different programs, different expectations. At the same time, there are additional personnel moves that have taken place. We have not renewed 8 teachers based on performance, and we haven't renewed 2 teachers based on certification, non-renewal.
And I think I would add that, I mean, in every year,
Those
the
things
budget is
happen.
good, bad, or indifferent.
Correct.
The points that the superintendent just made, that happens, as do retirements. And when that happens, that's how, when people ask, well, how did you go from, the dire circumstances that were being described a month ago to a situation now that you describe as being not nearly as bad as it could be? Well, there are a variety of factors. One, the municipal government, prioritized education, and as we've said, there'll be sacrifices made throughout the community to keep the schools moving forward, and this committee and the district as a whole is grateful for that. In addition to that, there are things that happen every year that produce savings. Teachers retire.
Right,
teachers
the
move on.
retirement piece alone saved a lot of people's jobs.
Yep.
And also, when you non-renew people, that also allows you to place some of the other people who would ordinarily be laid off into those positions that we currently need.
Right, but as you said, there's a bumping process, and that's
Yes.
why when we say affecting, we're talking about
Correct.
38 staff members. But that does not mean that anywhere close to 38 will not come back. That number is substantially lower.
Yes.
And as frankly, I think anyone who's been through this process before knows the number of notices exceeds, in most instances, the number of individuals who will ultimately not come back, and that's a good thing. It reduces the impact, but we can't. That being said, this is an impact, and we need to acknowledge it. Mr. Willis?
Just following up on a point you made before about finding savings, I'm assuming that even with the $1 million we got from the city that helped limit the damage, it still could have been more layoffs, I'm assuming, if there wasn't savings elsewhere, correct? I mean, were there cuts anywhere else that saved jobs, since we put such a focus on
Well,
that?
you gave us the marching orders and directed us.
Right.
When you saw what that proposed budget was to begin with, at $3.2 million, we've cut all those things.
Okay.
We don't have that luxury any longer to do what we really wanted to do in this district. Right now, we're almost in survival mode as far as getting through next year, getting contract language, doing some of these things that we really need to do. With the utmost attention on, this is a student-centered district, that in fact, we are here for the students to provide an education that's appropriate and progressive for these children. They've got to go out there and compete.
Yeah, and I just think
I'm sorry,
that,
I just want to point out one thing, one clarification. I mean, the municipal council is set to vote on the budget toward the end of June. And we know that the municipal council does have the legal authority to reduce the city's budget based on what was appropriated by the mayor. So I just want to make sure that when we're talking about this, we're using the appropriate sequence, because, you know, certainly we respect the municipal council's authority to do just that, but we also are grateful that the priorities as articulated through action in recent weeks demonstrate that we have a city council and a mayor who is looking to work with us, and we're grateful for that. So I apologize for
no, that's all right. I just thought that was an important point to make, because I think it was Councilman Churchill who made the comment of, you know, why is it always, you know, teachers who get laid off? And I know that's going to be the headlines of, you know, teachers getting laid off, because that's, you know, that's what we try to avoid. That's what we don't want to do. But I mean, it's important to know that, you know, every effort's been made to limit that number, so that, you know, the 9, though it's way too high, is we made it as, or the administration made it as small as it could be.
And people don't realize, when we started the process months and months and months ago, you don't have 4 assistant principals at the elementary school on the docket any longer. Also, one of these cuts, which is also an administrator in a department. We took right off the cuts in the first round, the director of technology education. We took off the personnel director. Those are the first to go. So when you look at administration, you're looking at 7 positions in administration that were on the docket at one time. None of them are there.
Mrs. Sturz?
Yeah, I just want to recap so that everybody remembers. This wasn't something that was done by the school district. It wasn't something done by the city. In fact, the city has gone, I believe, above and beyond. This is something that the state did that has put us in
Good
this,
point.
into this position. When we're used to getting increases annually, $1.5 to $2.5 million, give or take, and all of a sudden it comes in at 56,000 from the state. That's why we are where we are.
Right.
But I did want to ask one question, and as far as the contractual class sizes, are we going to be able to maintain that requirement?
Not necessarily.
Fair enough.
Language in the contract allows us during tough economic times to increase class size.
Okay.
There is some prohibitive language at one of the levels that doesn't allow for that, but at the other levels it does.
But
So-
I
so in
mean,
it-
when we talk about limiting the impact on students, that's, you know,
Right.
that's what we're saying, is that we've done everything possible to
Yeah.
avoid that. And based on what the numbers look like, we are going to avoid that to a large extent. And
That's
I think
correct.
that's
But it
that's
also
important to know.
sends the message too, and I'm glad to have the question, because it also recognized the fact that we went through every contract with a fine-tooth comb with regard to any of these possibilities. Because I certainly would rather have if I had to have a class size that was 2 students larger and keep the teacher, that's what I need to do.
Yep. Mr. Shane, you mentioned that we've gone through, we've looked, you know, everywhere. The budget that we sent to the city, as everyone knows, originally there was a $3.2 million gap between what the school committee was requesting and what what we considered to be a level services budget. Excuse me, I misspoke. There was a $3.2 million gap, but some of that was based on level services and some of it was based on requests. Now, we purposely avoided modifications to the personnel component of that budget because the negotiations are ongoing. We do have one line item, approximately $87,000, that was left intact because it was this committee and this administration's hope that we would find a way to allow for a compensation increase to our non-union employees. I think it's clear now that that line item is not going to survive. Most of these decisions and our final vote on the budget will take place after the city makes its appropriation in late June. But I do think it would probably, I mean, at this point, unless anyone has a bag of cash under the desk that nobody's told us about, that line item, I personally cannot see how it could possibly survive. And so I would entertain a motion at this time to strike that and thus impose essentially a compensation freeze on the compensation for our non-union employees, which that's administrators, this is not an easy thing to do, and I understand it may sound like an easy vote because they're our highest paid employees and it's a budget crisis, so why should there be a compensation increase? But the reality is, demonstrating that this committee and this administration value and appreciate the contributions of our educational leaders is how we keep good educational leaders in positions, and we're fortunate to have some excellent administrators running our buildings, but at this point, and I've entertained discussion on it, but at this point, I can't see how that line item can responsibly stay in.
Second.
Any further discussion, Mr. Withers?
I agree with you that I don't see any way, there is no way that 87,000 can stay in the final amount given where we are. I'm not entirely comfortable with the message that it sends, that because they're not in contract negotiations, we're just going to kind of write them off and take it out at this point. We're not taking out anyone else's increases or contractual obligations, but it almost sends a message, and I know it's not what we're trying to do, so maybe I'm just trying to make clear, as you did, that we're not trying to say they're not valuable, because they're incredibly valuable to our district, and I just worry about the message it sends that, well, we can strike your raise, but we're not going to strike anyone else's.
I agree. It's a terrible message. It's bad for the district.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad for the district going forward. It's a horrible message for this school committee to be sending. I think it's a necessary one at this point, but I think it's one that we're going to have to remember. And when it comes time to undo that message, we need to do so promptly and assertively. So I don't disagree. You can't keep good people in place if you don't demonstrate the value that you have for them. And we are, as I said, extremely fortunate to have people in place. I would say that in fact, I could say I know there will be no surprises with regard to this, and I think the superintendent has
Just the
taken care of
point,
that.
Mr. Chair, just the point that Mr. Withers is bringing it up to this body is a gratitude on my part in that recognition that we do understand. And I'm happy to hear that you understand how difficult this is to even strike this. And because I know, just as we've said in other negotiations, we'd love to be able to give our all of the workers and professionals here and certified people a raise that they deserve. This is not the year, and this is very difficult, but I very much appreciate your sentiment.
And I would also say, as this has become apparent, I know Ms. Singer has spoken to the point of, as we've had various discussions, the need to find ways to, in a non-monetary way, recognize that value. And I've already had some conversations with the superintendent, and he and I will be bringing forth some suggestions in the near future. Any further discussion? Mr. Larson?
Yes, I hope there's nobody out there who is under the mindset that if we could do this, we still wouldn't. Because if we could, I think I'm speaking for everybody that we certainly would.
Mm-hmm.
To have a workforce in the district the way we are right now, there's a lot of great people doing really special things. And it's difficult to look them in the eye and say, thanks, but you know what? Just can't do it this year. But I think we're being honest with them, and I think we're being open with them, and I think we're being as transparent about how we got in the position that we're in. And it's not really anybody's particular fault that could do anything about it at this point, but we also have a financial obligation to do what we're here to do. So I certainly hope people don't get confused in the message. I certainly understand how they can, but I hope they don't.
I think we're very fortunate that we have so many dedicated people in the system. Our children are very lucky.
I agree. Mr.
We
Tyler?
have to.
I agree with Mr. Lawson 100%, but what I will have to add is, we're in the middle of bargaining with our unions right now, and we were looking for concessions for every dollar contractual that we have to give. So I think that, the right thing to do in this, if we are able to come up with some concessions that do have a monetary value to them, or whatever, that this motion should probably be revisited at a later time. If there's a possible way where we could fund it fully or in some aspect of it.
Yeah, I just would say I don't think that applies just to the negotiations. I mean, I think, look, we've got a staff here who has moved this district forward in very significant ways. And there are a lot of people that are responsible for it. And frankly, 2 weeks ago, we were hearing about how the impact that a woman working in the cafeteria had on our valedictorian and our student rep to the school committee. I mean, that's what moves the district forward, the relationships with all of our staff. The reality is that as people take on different positions and positions of leadership, they become susceptible during times like this to these types of decisions. But you're absolutely right. However and whenever we find the flexibility, this has to be revisited. We will not be able to retain top-tier leadership talent if we don't prioritize this. And it is never politically popular to give someone making a six-figure salary a raise. It is necessary if you want to run a top-tier school system. That's how the world works. But so thank you for your point. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Sheehan, as I said, we'll be revisiting the non-monetary methods by which we may be able to recognize that. And when the time comes to revisit this, we certainly will.
Mhm. Thank you.
Moving on. Some time ago, feels like a long time ago, it wasn't that long ago, I suppose, the administration presented a variety of options for the school committee to visit with regard to how we manage our transportation infrastructure. Currently, our principal vendor is the Bloom Company that services the majority of our transportation needs. We also have an internal Attleboro School District Transportation Department. We are in custody of approximately how many vehicles, Mr. Rose?
We are in custody of 9 operating vehicles.
An important qualifier, thank you. 9 operating vehicles, that's not enough. And we are under contract with our vendor, and we've got other services that are not essentially included in that, and we need to make a decision as to how we are going to provide the services that are expected of the school district. The administration presented 4 options. They have different price tags associated with them. The purchase of 3 vehicles for $185,000 is essentially, and Mr. Rose, Mr. Sheen, please step in if I
That
misspeak.
number is 201,225.
201,000, okay, 201,000-ish. That is the number more or less that was included in the budget that we sent up. Now, I think it's been well documented. It was just spoken about at the municipal council 2 nights ago, that we have our request, our transportation budgetary request was for $3.78 million. The mayor's appropriation or recommended appropriation to the council is $3.4 million. As I said on Tuesday night, the city council, and I'll say here tonight, and I'll say here any other time I'm given the opportunity to speak publicly, our administration is in constant communication with the city administration about the transportation budget and that discrepancy. These are complicated tasks. People can draw different conclusions. This is not a standoff between the school department and City Hall regarding the transportation deficit. They know what we've estimated, and we are, this time, making sure that our estimates are made public, are made formal, and will be revisited as necessary throughout the year. But, as I said, that number includes the purchase of vehicles, and given the uncertainty with which we sort of foresee the transportation future, in Attleboro with regard to infrastructure, and I'm referring only to infrastructure. I think the thought behind the administration's presentation was that perhaps purchasing the vehicles and essentially waiting for them to break down eventually, and having a school committee be in a similar position that we are now, perhaps may not be the most prudent option. And I think that's why the options have been laid out the way that they have. So, Mr. Sheehan, do you want to add anything before we?
No, the committee knows what the four options are. You've had, the date was May 19th, the presentation. And you have the other options, number 3 and 4, deal with lease. I think because of the economic climate that Attleboro finds itself in, one may be a little bit easier to swallow than others. And knowing the history of what has transpired as well may make the decision a little bit easier in one direction or another. But I leave the committee to their own volition by which decision that you want to make, so we can implement this as soon as possible.
Thank you. And that is a good point, because in some of these cases, I'm not sure that there's a direct impact, but it's certainly related. We have services and programs starting July 1st that are affected by this, and we need to consider this with some urgency. So, anyone have any questions or comments? Mr. Storrs, then Mrs. Scales.
I know that we looked at it before, that of course, buying outright in the long run is better as far as the total amount that would be paid. But obviously, since our transportation has come in $380,000 short, I see that we have to go to leasing instead. We're going, in the total per year, leasing is less expensive than, of course, if we bought outright. But in the long term, buying outright is the better option as far as how much total you'll pay. But being that that's the case, and I know that you proposed that in year 1, possibly 3, but we need to move up in the second year to, I think 7 was the number. Doesn't it seem more likely that, or at least beneficial, that 7 leased buses is the way to go?
You asked me my recommendation?
Yes.
Absolutely. We have buses break down every single day. We don't know if we're going to get kids to and from certain places. So if the committee asked me my recommendation, I would look at the 7 buses.
And that still comes in 114 below where it would be if we were buying the buses.
That's correct, and I just want to add for clarity, our request is for 3.78.
Yes.
And as I've said repeatedly, and I guess I just need to get used to saying it repeatedly, not to anyone here, but to anyone that will listen, our request is 3.78, and it comes with no promises because there are variables that we can't control, and there's just no way of guaranteeing this. Mrs. Scales.
Tom,
Yes.
the figures you gave us, that you said they have to be for 5-year leases. Is there any way they can be for less, or do they have to be 5?
The answer is yes, Mrs. Scales. They can certainly be for less. The reason why, frankly, I asked for 5 years is because I was trying to minimize the payment as much as possible. But the bottom line is, if the school committee makes a decision, let's go for a 3-year period, I am positive that we can get a 3-year lease. Naturally, the price is going to be a little bit more, but yes, we can get a shorter lease.
Mr.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that was it.
Mr. Withers?
I think it's a two-part question. Our contract with Bloom, that does most of our busing, that's up next year, right? We have another year to go.
And then you have options as rollover years in those as well.
So, knowing that in a year, we're gonna have to possibly decide what we wanna do with our greater transportation for the district, I just wonder if it makes sense to limit the amount of buses we lease now, knowing that a year from now, we might decide to have Bloom or whoever it was provide more services.
I understand.
I don't know if there's I know there's a counter to that, but
I understand exactly what you're saying. My biggest fear is that in the last 5 months, we've had to take 2 or 3 buses off the road. They're no longer operable. We have buses break down every single day. If we purchase 3 or 4 buses and still operate our others, I'll be still in the same position that I'm in now, figuring out, number one, where is the money coming from to fix the buses in a maintenance account? Number two, how are we still in the position consistently to be able to rely on the fleet that we currently have?
If we were to decide a year from now, to send out another request for a bid for transportation, could we put in there that they would use the buses we have, or would we be stuck with our buses to do our
I
own?
think you'd have to ask legal counsel, but I don't see why you couldn't in fact look at that in a contract with a potential new vendor.
All right, thanks.
Can I,
Mr. Rose.
I'm not running it. Yeah. Look at me.
Mr. Chair, can I add
When we
on?
leave the room, Tom, you can look at
All
me.
right, thank you. So this, now I know the ground rules. Where's that? Mr. Chair, just one comment I want to make. We asked Bloom, would you like to submit an offer as one of these options? And Bloom Bus said, thanks very much, no thank you. So the one thing that we don't have to decide tonight, but we'll probably have to decide, maybe in 6 to 8 months, is when we submit, if the decision's made to go out to bid, adding in the current tasks that the Attleboro School Department is responsible for may not necessarily make our proposal more attractive to other vendors, because to be very honest with you, we're transporting kids to 10 different locations and naturally the need for wheelchair vehicles and so on. And I don't want to suggest that that doesn't mean we can add it to the proposal, but I don't think that adding it to the proposal is necessarily going to be a home run and going to really make a lot of bidders very, very interested in doing the work.
I think that we don't know any of that with certainty, but these are all the types of questions that need to be explored thoroughly over the summer and in the fall. And I'm not sure whenever this decision is going to be made, I would not count on it being 6 to 8 months from now, because this is, I mean, maybe it will be, I don't know, but one of the things we also explore is what is the best timing to produce the most favorable results for the district. But I think there are all sorts of things, entities connected to the district, that we have to decide if incorporating them into our proposals may bring down the cost. The point is, we need two things. We need a transportation system that is reflective of our educational needs, all of them, not just the ones that we've been doing for 100 years, but all the educational needs of the district. It's got to be tied to that. And we need to understand that we are not exactly in favorable fiscal times, and we've got to find a way to reduce the cost as much as possible. Mr. Larson.
I think I actually have 3 questions now. You said how many operable buses do we have?
Approximately 9,
Yeah,
eight,
okay.
8 vehicles and a car.
Okay. So, rough lifetime of, if we bought a bus, reasonably speaking, 8 to 10 years, wheelchair van, I don't know how long they're apt to last with the kind of use that we would put on one of these vehicles. Do you have any feel for that?
Eight to 10 may be a little on the high side. Certainly would be right now the proposal is for 5 years for the lease. Certainly would be for at least 5 years, maybe around 7, possibly 8. As you might know, we have, if the decision's made to lease, we have the ability to buy that vehicle for $1 at the end of the lease. But to answer your question, I think Mr. Larson probably maybe somewhere around 7 years, but
Okay. So, I mean,
maybe not 10.
so between the 9 that we have,
Yes,
it's reasonable to suspect that if we leased 7 additional vehicles, some of those might stay on the road, some of them might not.
absolutely.
But we would be in a situation where we had, let's say, 10 to 13, somewhere between 10 and 13 vehicles on the road. So getting to one of the points that Mr. Sheehan made the other night at the city council, we would have a larger operating fleet that we could run ourselves to help offset some of our special ed transportation, McKinney-Vento transportation, and get us in maybe a better fiscal situation with some of that transportation than where we are currently. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely, Mr. Larson. Yes.
So, in the best or least financial impact way of getting more vehicles of our own on the road, I guess I would have to agree with the superintendent's recommendation to lease 7 vehicles at this point, so that we could increase our operating fleet to try to recoup some of those savings that we're currently spending to help offset some of these lease costs. Is that,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Tyler and then Mr. Storrs.
I hope everyone on this committee has always looked in the parking lot over there where these buses are parked. And they're strategically parked because I think if they put them on together, the Board of Health will be down here saying we're starting a junkyard and we don't have a permit to do it, okay? I could never understand this, and I'm glad it's on the plate. A lot of those buses are in deplorable conditions, and especially the kids that they're transporting. A lot of these kids have special needs or whatever, and it's a difficult job enough to be a bus driver without having a bus that does not want to operate properly and do what it's supposed to do. And I always thought it was funny when we negotiated the contract in 2009 with a new bus vendor. We put specific language in that contract that we would have updated buses. They're going to be top notch, and that was a reality. Yet we didn't do it on our school side. So I think even looking and I voted for it too. So lack of foresight on that. So I'm glad to see this proposal come forward. It's long overdue, and I think what Bill said, I think it's going to be well spent money, and has the potential of saving us money over the next couple of years, giving us that latitude where we can hopefully transport some kids that cost us a lot of money on a daily basis. So again, thank you, Tom, for putting the proposal in front of us.
Thank you.
Mr. Storrs.
Ken and Tom, I know that you had mentioned that this might be able to help us with our athletic runs as well. Can you explain how that would?
Absolutely. Bottom line is, right now, we have one big yellow bus. It's bus 4. We don't have any backups to that. So when Mark Uhl has let's say a football team that needs to be transported, or it could be any team that needs to be transported somewhere, we have a very difficult time. We're very reluctant to let to take that business on because we have no backup. Our plan, if in fact we can get new vehicles, whatever, whether it's 3, purchase, lease, 5, 7, whatever, that big yellow bus is going to stay. Primarily because that will now be our backup if by chance that we run into a problem with an athletic run. So the bottom line is the number of athletic runs that we'd like to be able to make, we're not able to make as much. And I communicated with Mark maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, in all likelihood, Tom, we've got about $35,000 a year that we give to Bloom, would give to the Attleboro School Department if you had vehicles available.
Follow.
Mr. Storrs.
Yeah, as far as, I know, I see the 87,264.
Yes.
Is that a finite number, or would you need the motion to be giving you a little wiggle room, if you will?
Thank you. Love the wiggle room because the quotes were as of approximately a month ago. A quick sidelight, because some of you are probably thinking, why? I thought it was 185. What the heck is this $200,000 number? Including that 185 was a vehicle that was available, but it had to be kind of it was only, I don't want to say temporary, but it was like a 30 to 45 day limit. And when we went back to get another estimate, that vehicle was gone. And that's why it went up approximately $15,000.
So-
but to answer your question, prefer not a finite number, but let's say in the vicinity of blank of each of those 3 numbers.
If you're
That'd
not
be
in the
helpful.
vicinity, we'll let you know. Don't worry. I promise.
Thank you.
So just to verify, so if I was to make a motion on leasing 7 vehicles, and I said not to exceed 100,000,
Perfect.
that would be
That's
in
great.
the realm of what you would need?
That's super, and thank you. Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Was there any other questions or comments? Okay. I think we certainly have. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we have a consensus about the leasing option, and further that the consensus is to lease the 7. Could you just? I know that's what Mr. Storrs just said in terms of not exceeding 100,000 seems to make sense to me. I don't think there's any reason that we need to nail down the numbers. I think that the motion will give clear instructions to the administration as to the committee's expectations. So I don't have any concerns about that. But could you just run through, Mr. Rose, one last time in terms of exactly what it is that we're authorizing?
Sure, absolutely. Sidelight. One of the questions you might be asking is this. If Tom said we have 9 vehicles, why are we only trying to lease 7? The answer is we have a car that's in good shape. But the reality is with the 8 vehicles that we currently use, we can do that run, and frankly, have 1 less driver if we have 7 good vehicles. And that's the reason for the gap between 9 and 7. There's a car, and we get more efficiency with 7 vehicles than we have with the current 8. So the request is for the leasing of 7 vehicles, and that includes a big yellow bus, it includes 2 minibuses, and it includes 4 wheelchair vans, and those add up to the 7 vehicles. The quoted price, lease price is $87,264. Would love to have some flexibility, and that's what we would love for the school committee to approve.
Okay. Now, obviously, if it turns out to be 80 or 85, that's even better than 87. And you can just follow the logic from there. But I actually think, to Mr. Storr's point, maybe even 105 or 110 may be appropriate. So, should
I'll
offer that
make the
motion.
motion. Yep. All right, so I make the motion that the school committee directs the administration to go forward with option 4, leasing of 7 vehicles at a cost not to exceed $105,000. I think that should be good enough.
Second?
Any further discussion? Just add one final point. I mean, this is a good step forward. It's something that's necessary, obviously. I do want to say that, obviously we've got a lot of challenges. They're well documented. They've been described with a variety of adjectives tonight, and particularly behind the scenes. But the first priority has been, is, and will always be student safety. And the reason why the numbers of buses have been reduced is because there were determinations made that buses were not equipped to transport students. And no students are on buses that if they're deemed to be unsafe. But the uncertainty and the instability of those determinations is what is leading us to the position of where we have to go. Now, with regard to the actual expenditure, I just want to add that the school committee's request included the need to upgrade the infrastructure. This decision tonight, assuming it passes, will have the effect of reducing what we think we need. Our official request can't change. It shouldn't change. The municipal council has made clear, and this school committee has made clear, that we are not lowballing on transportation, that we also make no promises, and that currently our request is $3.78 million. But after we take this step forward, there are many other steps in terms of the internal administration of the system, components like the Aspen program that we've heard so much about, and everything else, to make sure that we manage the system as efficiently as possible, bring the costs down. It's reflective of our educational needs, and student safety is and always will be the #1 priority. But this is, every time we take a vote on transportation, I feel like there's some segment of the population that thinks, well, I guess they've just fixed transportation. We've got a ways to go. We've got a lot of progress that needs to be made. This is I think, a step in the right direction.
Just
Mrs. Scalzi.
one more question. So this would have an effective date of when?
Would be fiscal year 15. The bottom line is we'd wait for the green light. First step would be, assuming that the school committee passes it, will be to make sure that amount gets included in the school committee approved budget, make sure that the municipal council keeps the mayor's recommended budget. And once those 2 steps have occurred, and we get into fiscal year 15, specifically July 1, then frankly, the funds should be available, and we should have the green light, and we'll start trying to procure at least the vehicles as soon as possible.
Mr. Sheehan?
That's not exactly true. The exact truth is you also have a partner in this. Transportation is the responsibility of the city. The city has to be involved in any lease programs associated with buses. We then have to bring this to Barry LaCasse. We have to bring it to the city side with regard to after a vote has been taken tonight.
Right.
They own the lease. They own transportation.
Right. But I don't think those points are contradicting. I think it's just another
No,
piece
it's
of
just
it.
a step
Yep,
that
sure.
I want you to know that there is another step in this and there is a partner in this.
Sure.
I guess, but my point was, I do have concerns with the extended school year, just making sure that, again, because of safety,
I understand.
that we have enough.
And the answer is yes. We need 5 vehicles for June 30. We have them. For July 7th, we need 6 vehicles. We have them. But as Mr. Sheehan said, yes, it is a process, and Once we've got the firm price on the lease and we have the documentation, you're right, all leases have to go before the municipal council for their approval.
Okay.
But
Mrs.
but
Torres.
we'll be okay for the summer program.
Okay.
Just wanted to verify, I mean,
Yes.
if we do the vote today, which we're in the process, that'll give you time between now and July to, get the lease set,
Yes.
bring it before, City Hall?
Okay, if I respond? The answer is, we can't bring it before City Hall until school committee officially approves the budget that the municipal council's approved. But once those two things occur, you should come to me and say, Tom, how quickly can we get the municipal
Well,
council?
I think we're doing that today,
Yeah.
so just
All right.
the next day,
All right.
all right?
But, I mean, conversations can
I don't know what
happen
time they
between
close, but
Those conversations will take place as soon as this vote is taken,
in fact,
which
in
means
fact,
tomorrow morning.
I have conferred with representatives in the municipal government. They know what's coming. There are no surprises, and they'll stay late for Mr. Rose when he shows up. But, okay. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Thank you, Mr. Rose. And we will look forward to hearing about the next steps as they play out. The final item in our new business agenda are the result of our school safety bids. And this is a project that the school committee has been briefed on a few times. We have commented on it sparingly in public, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Sheehan to talk.
As the committee knows, and we've been looking at the paramount, not just on buses, but in our schools for safety for all of our kids, all of our personnel. And the bottom line is that this is a major initiative in the school system. It started last July. It's going to continue until we can ensure as the maximum safety for our kids and staff. And part of that was, in fact, going out to bid with an appropriate bid process for school safety. My understanding is that we had one company called Be Safe, which is the major company, at least that I know of in New England. And I'm very, very familiar with the company. I have worked extensively with this company for the last 6 years. So I know of its reputation, I know of its beginnings, and I know how good this company really is. It does everything that we want it to do, especially with Mr. Withers, the chairman of the policy committee. It adds a piece to what we've been working on in that policy committee and other people that's on the committee. So we do have a bid. The bid was sent in today or the other day, and we opened it. And so what you have is that the school committee actually still remains in the budget a $25,000 piece for security, and that affects all of our schools. That $25,000, in fact, is for this year. The total amount of that bid was in excess of $52,000. It's spread over a 3-year period of time, but the last year is only $1,313. So next year will be approximately 27 and change for that. And so we will be paying for this over a 2-year period of time, and then you will start seeing the fruits of this very, very shortly.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Mr. Withers?
You mentioned we'll see the fruits of it very, very shortly. When is the idea that it will be operational? Are we talking next school year it would be in place?
I believe that the majority, if you looked at the window that we saw just a school committee meeting ago or an executive session, at that time when I was looking to do this in December, it was going to be implemented fully by April 1st, I believe. When I was talking to Tom McDonald, the president of the company, because of the summer months are involved now, we can cut a month off of that. So I think that we're looking at October 1st, but I think most of that work will be done. That's a good time because we still have to do the work when we have the kids in school, that we are doing the drills, we are doing some of those pieces. So the people who in fact observe and evaluate the effectiveness of what we do, we have to do it when kids are doing the drills. So that's a good timing. Completion date, conservatively, November 1st.
But possibly sooner. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the request for bid for Be Safe as documented in the school committee packets.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Concludes our new business agenda. We've reached the open forum portion of the meeting, where by policy I am required to tell you that this is a time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for committee members to engage in dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. Please know that we are interested in what you have to say, but we cannot respond without background information on your issue. If anyone would like to address the committee, I'd ask you to please come forward, and since we don't have a podium set up, you should feel free to take the seat of honor next to our superintendent of schools, Mr. Sheehan. Have a seat.
All right. Hello, I'm Christy, Bachelor of the Attleboro Bluefish Swim Club, and I am here in support of the aquatic facility that has been down since September, and I would hope that this committee will bring positive results for the summer, and that we, hope that you'll continue to support the pool. That's about it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate you coming in. Would anyone else like to address the school committee? Okay, I'm going to close the open forum, and we're going to move on to our finance, facilities, and procurement subcommittee report. Now, so, Mr. Lawson.
I think there's one more part coming. Okay, reporting for the meeting of June 4th. We have a number of motions to bring forward to you. Backup information was supplied in the weekly update. First motion is to approve the payment of a FY13 health insurance invoice. Forward this invoice to City Council for approval. We have to do this because it's a past year invoice.
So moved.
Any discussion?
I do have a question. If I remember correctly, this is, I think this is the right one I'm looking at.
Yeah.
The one where it's a bill from last school year, right? That we're
Yep.
looking to pay with this year's funding?
No.
Or is it next year's funding?
The answer is this year's funding, fiscal year 14's funding,
That's what I thought.
is going to pay for an invoice from the previous fiscal year. The wrinkle with this is, we were notified this fiscal year, so obviously there was no way in the world we could have paid it by June 30th, but in any case, we'll get the invoice properly paid.
And-
If the school committee approves.
And the only reason I was wondering was because in the email, it indicated that the next communication is August 20th. See where I'm talking?
I do.
So I believing that it was the case that it's this year's funding,
Mhm.
is it carryover funding that we're looking to pay it with? Or
No.
The
how does
answer-
that August 20th date come into play, I guess is the better
Well,
question.
if you look further up
Yep.
the email, the whole train started in this last summer.
Yep.
So we were well into this fiscal year before the whole matter even started.
No, I understand
So
that.
that's the August, the August that it's referring to.
Oh, it was last year, August.
Correct.
Other
Now I
August.
understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Like-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next motion is motion to approve the pool contract with Bishop Fian with an increased fee of $135 for non-residents and $110 for Attleboro residents.
So moved.
Second? Discussion? Questions?
Just a question.
Sure.
What was the fee increased from?
Each of the fees went up $10, I believe. Any other discussion or question? Yes,
I do think it's important to note that residents is one cost that's just lower than non-residents. I
Absolutely.
think that's important to note.
And I think the other thing worth noting is I believe it was 5 years? I know you know right off the top of your head. 5 years since these rates have been changed, so. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next motion is to approve the continuation of the fire alarm service contract with Home Electronic Life Protection.
So moved.
Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next motion is to award the student accident insurance contract with Lefrabe Insurance.
So moved.
Second,
Second?
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The next is a motion to award the bid of AESOP for the substitute management system.
So moved.
Second?
Questions? Yes.
What do we currently use for
A
tracking?
high school secretary.
Linda, I believe her name is, right?
Thank you.
Was.
Nothing against Linda, I've been told. It's
No,
just
Linda's
that this is a
excellent.
much
She's
better.
outstanding.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the transportation report dated May 28th, 2014 to the city council.
So moved.
Questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Motion to approve the Bluefish contract with language changes reviewed by legal counsel.
So moved.
Discussion? Questions? Yes.
What were the changes, important changes from the last contract as to?
Mr. Rose?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Larson. If it's all right with you, Mr. Withers, I've got this email right in front of me, so if you don't mind, I'm just gonna read it. Bill, purpose of the email is to ask you if you could please try to obtain approval from the FinCom and the school committee for the new Bluefish Swim Club contract. Two primary changes. One, we're increasing the rental cost of the pool. The old contract had a monthly fee of $956 times 11 months, which equals $10,516. Please see second. The new contract calls for an hourly rate of $19.76 in year one, $25.70 in year two, $31.25 in year three. Please note that if we can obtain approval from the Finance Committee and the School Committee on or before Wednesday, 7/3, then I'll obtain a signature from the Bluefish Swim Club, and Bluefish should be able to use the pool when it's scheduled to open for business on Monday, 7/7. Regarding the new contract, we'll have less than 1 month of year one receipts because year one expires on July 31st. Bluefish doesn't use the pool in August, so it's a September to July contract. The reason why the contract has been set up that way is because of the fiscal year. In year two of the contract, the hourly rate will be $25,700, and it's possible that the ASD could collect approximately $35,000. In year three of the contract, the hourly rate will be $31.25, and it's possible that the ASD could collect approximately $43,000. This is based on the usage of the pool by Bluefish prior to the pool shutting down last September. One other item. The license covers the Bluefish's Swim Club rental of the pool and the locker rooms and nothing else. Please note that this license does not put the Attleboro School Department on the hook to replace the filtration system within a particular period of time. We know that the filtration system may have to be replaced at an approximate cost of $85,000, but let's see how much mileage we can get from our current new main drain, and we'll move on forward with the filtration system when we absolutely have to. But for now, we're gonna try to have this run for at least a year and see the positive impact that the main drain has on the filtration system.
Jim?
I noticed on page 5, language that I'm not sure about. It says the contract period covers 2 months, July 7, 2014 to July 31, 2014.
Mhm. I think that's what Mr. Rose was just alluding to, the contract, the years in the
So,
contract.
but
That
obviously
should
2
be
months.
changed.
Yeah,
Be 1 month.
thank you. Okay,
My error. Apologize.
no, minimal.
Mike?
I'm just gonna say, I'm glad to see, that we come up with a contract with the Bluefish Club. They're a great multi-award winning club. They brought a lot of pride and, recognition to, the city of Attleboro, and, we're glad to have them back, and let's hope that the, fixes that we did to the pool are going to be, knock on wood, long lasting, where we can keep renewing this contract with the club. So again, I just wanna thank Bluefish. They're a great group of kids, and, I wish them the best season moving forward.
It's a great partnership, I agree. Any other questions? Mr. Murphy?
Mr. Rose, the amounts that you just read off, I believe are the same as the first contract that we never really got off the ground because the pool shut down, correct? So there have been no changes there?
The answer, you're right, there have been no changes. No changes with the price. The last 4 to 6 months, our communication, specifically my communication with Christie and with Chuck, has been more in regard to the language, not in regard to the price. piece.
Okay. And Mr. Hool, our athletic director, has been consulted throughout the process to
Absolutely.
ensure that this is fitting into all our school needs.
The answer is yes, and with the various emails and the various iterations, Mark, Jason Parento, Noel Givens, all have been heavily involved with this process and all done a terrific job in supporting me with this contract.
Okay. And in January, the committee did vote to begin the process of establishing a revolving account connected to the pool.
Yes.
I have not pressed that issue because we have not had a pool, and I didn't expect it to be collecting any money. However, as that situation changes, I will want to hear as to where we are in terms of that process to establishing that. And connected to that, the new standing subcommittee on infrastructure and facilities will be seated by July. We'll establish a meeting schedule. We'll make sure that it meets at appropriate intervals. But the fact that this is an issue that we've had to deal with, and the fact that we know that we still have work to do, as was referenced in the correspondence you just read, I would imagine that it will be, if not the first agenda item, certainly one of the first agenda items to ensure that we're doing long-term planning so we don't put ourselves in a situation in which our Attleboro High School swim teams, as well as our partners, are swimming off-site. That it shouldn't happen, and I want to make sure that future committees don't have to deal with that. So, thank you.
I guess my only other comments is, well, at some point, we will be dealing with it, one way or the other.
Well,
And
we've got an
but
issue
we'll-
that still
but-
needs to be addressed,
Oh, yeah,
but-
we should be dealing with it in a planned situation instead of an unplanned situation.
Which actually is a good point. That's another good point. Thank you. There's your mind. That the other thing the committee has voted for is that the pool, and I think after we hear from our task force on Monday night, I suspect that may expand to some degree, but the school committee, there's a report now due every other year as to the status of the pool. And hopefully that is a very boring report for the first 10, 15, 20 years. But at some point, somebody's going to see the problem coming. And we're not going to find out about it when it gets shut down. So, but thank you.
My only other comment is, Tom, I'd like to just thank you, and I know all the other folks that have been working with you to get us to this point tonight, so thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Ms. Larson, can I make one quick comment?
You certainly can.
Thank you to you, Christie, and to Chuck for all of the iterations, your patience, and for working with the Attleboro School Department so well. Appreciate all your outstanding support.
I hope the more money will be put to good use.
We already have a project for it.
Thank you, Ms. Larson.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Policy Subcommittee report, Mr. Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This policy subcommittee met on June 2nd, and I have two related policies that we reviewed and approved to present to the full committee today. The first, both have to do with proof of residency and residency requirements for students in our district. The first of those two policies is policy JF, residency policy is its title. It's been provided to you. One change that needs to be made to the version you saw is in the fourth paragraph down. If you look at the second line, it currently reads move from kindergarten to grade 5, move from grade 8 to grade 9. It should actually say, and correct me if I'm wrong, move from kindergarten to grade 1, from grade 4 to grade 5, and from grade 8 to grade 9, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the idea with that is that when our students are changing levels, well, first, when a student enters the district, they'll have to provide the proof of residency. That's in the next policy we'll go over. And also when they change schools. So 4 to 5, 8 to 9, and also I think K to 1, because not all our students are in kindergarten. So that's the idea behind it, and that's the change that would be made. But I don't know if you want to go, the administration wants to kind of speak to what's in here in general terms and the rationale behind it.
Sure. I know last August we went to central registration because we wanted to place students appropriately in schools and have all the same documents coming in. So this kind of just centralizes not only the process, but it's also the school committee policy about specifically the things that people need to bring in registration. And I don't, the policy that we had didn't really ask for enough specific documentation in terms of residency. So I did a lot of research in surrounding schools and throughout Massachusetts to really pick some things that we really require when people come in. We were looking for 2 of 3 things, but that didn't necessarily always support residency and people living in the district. So this will really clarify and ensure to Attleboro that we're servicing Attleboro students.
And I think I would piggyback on that. I think, a lot of people have heard from, whether it's teachers or parents or seen for yourself, the issue where, there are some students coming into our district that we don't believe reside in Attleboro. And if that's the case, they shouldn't be going to school here. Our resources are somewhat limited, and we want to spend as much on our students, and to the extent that, this helps with that, all the better. So I think this would, one, go to a matter of fairness for our students, and also helping us, provide more for the students who should be here and are here legally and rightfully. So what I would ask for is a motion to approve this new residency policy JF, so that we have an official policy as to the residency of the children.
So moved.
Students. Second?
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Scales? Yeah.
Because we are a pre-K to 12-plus program, those pre-K students, do they have to go through the whole process again? Or as they, for those who are entering into kindergarten?
What we've done with pre-K is the same around central registration, so we've asked them to bring the same documents when they come into pre-K. So when we do child find, early child find, we identify those students. I think some of the parents were very concerned that they had to come in and re-register for kindergarten, which was very concerning because they felt like, I've already registered my child, and then when they roll over into kindergarten, why do I need to come back to the district? So we also changed that process this year. We sent specific letters to kids that were already registered and had proved residency in the district, and just asked them to send us updated information for emergency contact purposes. So when we did the rollover in Aspen and the kids went and were dispersed to different schools, because everyone doesn't go to Thatcher just because that's where our preschool is, that they would have an opportunity if there were changes to make them in that way, so they wouldn't have to come through the registration process again.
Okay.
So to piggyback on Lori's question, because this whole paragraph over here is about moving from one level to the other level, kindergarten to first, fourth to
Yes.
fifth. Is there language in here about the pre-K or the new kindergarten student indicating, obviously, as you just said, they have to go through the same process, but is there language to that effect?
There isn't language in this policy to this effect. Most of the referrals for pre-K come through child find, through special education, so we've identified those students and they've come in and proved residency at that point. And I think that rolling them over with the correct emergency information, then that's already kind of proven residency at that point. So we're sending documentation home because people didn't want to come twice to registration. But I agree that maybe we should add something at the pre-K level as well.
Or even, there's something, many students don't do pre-K, they start at K.
It's not mandatory.
Right.
Right,
It's not mandatory.
So-
And kindergarten's not mandatory either. That's why we have
Sure.
language for first grade.
But it seems that we should be verifying residency no matter whether they're starting at pre-K or K.
Absolutely.
Well, and I
Right.
think there should be language to that effect.
Well, there's language in here that when students enter the school district.
Yeah.
So I would say if they
Yes.
enter at pre-K, if
Okay,
they enter
so
at
that
K,
would cover it,
that would
okay.
cover it.
Fair enough?
Any other comments? Mr. Murphy?
Maybe, I don't think this is completely off topic, but is there a way that districts can assess how many students are living in the district but not, but whose families have chosen not to avail themselves of the kindergarten programming available? Are there estimates through a census of any kind?
Well, we should be getting a census every year. We get live births in Attleboro, so when we go to, for kindergarten registration, we will get the live birth data from the town hall or city hall, excuse me, and that they send that to us. So it actually tells us, and that's how we start the identification to send out notices for kindergarten.
Do we have any sense as to where the district stands with regard to students who are, at least for the moment, opting not to participate in the kindergarten program?
I don't think we have many, to be honest. I
don't
think people
get the
want
sense
their
that there
kids in
isn't.
full day K.
Sure. And I think that, when we made the switch to full-day kindergarten, that was clear that the overwhelming consensus was that people wanted their kids enrolled, they wanted them enrolled in a full-time program. I just wonder because obviously part of the formula, that state uses and part of the fiscal incentive to going to full-day kindergarten was the monetary benefit of expanding the enrollment. And as I think we need to aggressively pursue students who, families may be choosing between Attleboro and one of our neighboring schools. I wonder, what efforts can we make as a district, affirmative efforts to try to bring in more students, but probably a conversation for another day, so we'll have it. Thank you, Ms. Withers.
Any other comments, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next policy just piggybacks on that. It's JF Exhibit 1. It's actually Exhibit to that policy. And what it is it's the proof of residency that the district is now going to require. It's been updated and strengthened, I believe I can say. It's now going to require 3 different proofs of residency. One from column A, one from column B, and one from column C. And again, I'll let the administration kind of explain the rationale for this and what the different types of identification in the different columns.
So in column A, we've added, some of the things that we've added is a note of, sometimes people are on month-to-month basis with rents or lease, so there's actually a specific form that we ask for if people are on month-to-month basis that they can get notarized and signed by their landlord, which makes it a little bit easier for them to prove residency. Some people do not have leases, and the other things are pretty straightforward. In terms of column B, the things we've added is a utility bill within the past 45 days. Sometimes I get things that are 2 years old. So obviously, we want to get the most updated utility bill. And column C, and this is probably, you're aware of this, a lot of people talk about Rhode Island plates in our parking lot. And I think sometimes people just don't change their plates. So we're asking for things like a printed driver's license, not only for identification, but also for verification of residency, as well as, a vehicle registration. And then dated within the past year has been added. So if you don't have those top things in column C, there were other things like a tax bill, an excise tax, a property tax bill, a current W-2 form, or a letter from approved government agency.
Thank you. So again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. 3 forms of proofs of residency, which all adding some language that they're more recent, so that someone can present an older document and as a proof that they live here. So I thank the administration for putting this forward, and I would ask for a motion to approve this policy JF-E1.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And lastly, we at the last policy meeting, as we have in many of the last policy meetings, we didn't meet in executive session and continue to discuss our upgrades to our policies as to school safety and communication with the public. Those are progressing nicely. We had the Be Safe presentation earlier today, and we have some draft policies as to part of it being put together. So it's been our intention from the beginning to have new policies in place by the beginning of next school year. And talking with the superintendent, there's no reason why that can't be the case. So thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. Okay, so we have come to the end of our agenda. We are going to convene an executive session, but as I said, we're meeting tonight, on Thursday night, in the hope of clearing out our agenda because of the long list of items that need to be taken care of prior to the conclusion of the academic year. It doesn't mean the committee will not convene over the summer, but there's just some of these things are time sensitive. We will meet again in open session on Monday, June 16th at 6:30 p.m. To give you a quick sneak preview, we will be joined by the Executive Board of the Attleboro Special Education Parent Advisory Council, who will offer their annual report to the school committee. Dr. McCarthy will also be giving an overview and a briefing on a variety of special education issues. We will be introduced to our new student representatives, Tyler Stowe and Jack Flynn, and we'll have a number of new business items as well, including the preliminary report of the task force on the rehabilitation of Attleboro High School, along with a variety of promotional items and discussion on the district's decision with regard to either MCAS administration or park administration for the 14-15 school year. So that's what you can look forward to for Monday night. But for now, Mr. Tyler, I apologize.
No, I just, when you're done, please.
Sure. I'll make a motion to enter into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union personnel, because as the chair, I do believe that public discussion may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the school committee,
Not to return.
and not to return in open session. Do we have a second?
Yes, I would just like to add before we go off the air that I think everybody knows by now that the concession stand is going to be built. They're hoping for it to be built now with volunteers because of the price being almost double of the money that's been set aside. So I just hope anybody out there has any type of skills or can just carry stuff will sign up to be a volunteer, what I think is going to be a great project for Attleboro as a whole. And again, we can use as many people as we can, so you can contact the administration here or Barry Lacasse at City Hall and kind of sign up for a job.
I think he's out there. I saw him out there with a shovel earlier. So Mr. Lacasse taking advantage of the good weather. So thank you, Mr. Tyler. Ms. Singer.
Yes.
Mrs. Zito.
Yes.
Mr. Tyler.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, yes. Mrs. Scales.
Yes.
Mrs. Sawyer.
Yes.
Mr. Withers.
Yes.
Mr. Storrs.
Yes.
The committee will now convene in executive session.
I actually think Jerry would like them.
Well, you gotta be brief.
That's where I agree.
Well, the deadline's the 15th. So I have to get